Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene launched a new podcast, and the first episode was so vile, so awful, that apparently even she, or her team at least, thought so and took it down. Last I checked the episode that I'm about to show you some moments from, Battleground with MTG, has been wiped, the first episode from Rumble, but we got clips before it could be wiped. And I can only bear to show you a few short moments from it because it's all so enraging, starting with a sick moment where she calls Biden the slave of Zelensky for supporting Ukraine, and then goes on to vomit a bunch of conspiracy theories.
Because of this Ukraine war and Joe Biden being the little slave to Zelensky that he is, all because of Hunter Biden's little business deal with Burisma and others. They're not the only ones. America is having to go to war with nuclear Russia. And now we know because of Jack, the 21-year-old National Guardsman that released classified documents in a little chat room for gamers. We now know the real crimes and who the real criminals are in Washington, D.C. And I want you to know, I find it really odd that Jack, the 21-year-old National Guardsman, low level, by the way, who I don't think was the only one and wasn't the one that really got those classified documents. I guarantee you that he got them from somebody. But why is Jack the only one sitting in jail?
So let's walk through that and then we'll get to another clip. She says that Biden is a slave of Zelensky. They keep going back and forth on their conspiracy on this. Half the time I'm hearing that this isn't really Ukraine's war and it's America's war. It's a proxy war with Russia where it's actually the United States that's calling the shots and escalating the conflict and is wanting to come into a direct conflict with Russia. And then the other half of the time, it's what you just heard there. Biden's beholden to Zelensky, which, if you know anything about international relations, is a hilarious prospect. But her proof for this mysterious hold over Biden that Zelensky has is Hunter Biden. Of course it is. So his laptop is the reason that all of the West has united to back Ukraine and standing to support them in defending themselves. Let's just break this down. A standing policy of sending aid to Ukraine amid Russian aggression on the part of the U.S. government and other Western nations is because we always knew a former comedian would become president in Ukraine and would get a hold of Joe Biden's son's laptop, which holds such secrets that Biden would have to command every NATO-aligned country to do what they were already going to do in a situation like this, send aid to Ukraine. Very logical. Then she brings up Jack Tejera, pushing the same false claim that he proved American soldiers are in direct conflict with Russian soldiers. Thus, Biden has been lying about the war. False. What was proven in these documents was that military personnel, wait for it, are at the embassy in Ukraine. Yeah, obviously. Shocking. And yes, Marjorie, and yes, Jack Tejera, if you leak classified information to a chat group on Discord to look cool, you can expect to be prosecuted for it. Quickly, before we get into this next clip, to address once again her general opposition to supporting Ukraine, she pretends she's against war and for peace, and that's what justifies hating Ukraine. But I say once again, as I've said so many times now, explain how not supporting Ukraine when Russia is invading their country is in the interest of peace. Explain that. That will increase the chances that Russia feels emboldened. They won't stop invading because we stop supporting Ukraine. And a precedent will have been set that if you do enough damage, threaten nuclear weapons, you can take over whatever country you like, which would make the world less stable. A less peaceful situation will be created if we follow the advice of Marjorie Greene. Not just in regard to this, by the way. Next moment.
And then they want to make fun of us on the news and say, oh, right-wingers, oh, conservative Americans are upset over drag queens. You're damn right we're upset over drag queens. That's because they have an agenda.
Yes, they have an agenda to dance and have fun. But why is this the obsession? I would bet all but two people watching or listening to Marjorie Greene's podcast have ever watched a drag show or interacted with a drag performer. So why is this the issue facing America when it doesn't impact barely anyone? I've said it before and I will continue to. Distraction politics. If Marjorie Greene can keep her viewers hatefully obsessing over drag queens, a group of performers that they barely know anything about, then they aren't focusing on her lack of solutions being put forward, meaningful, significant solutions being put forward to the real issues facing them. They won't focus on, just to pick one recent news item, the fact that, as Ross Story writes here, the proposal from House Republicans for the budget would slash critical services for American soldiers that have left the field. The U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs explained in a release. They won't focus on the way that Republican policy, Marjorie Greene's policy positions, directly hurt them. Because they'll be too busy worrying about the boogeyman of woke or drag queens or whatever it might be. Distract, so that you don't have to act. You don't have to act to improve the lives materially, significantly of your constituents. That's the playbook. Last moment we'll look at from this podcast episode, self-censored podcast episode, her talking about Dylan Mulvaney.
I'd like to bring up one of the biggest pedophiles in America today. His name is Dylan Mulvaney, and I won't be referring to him as a she or her.
Oh my. For what? Why do people get that treatment from people like Marjorie Greene? If you're not familiar, Dylan Mulvaney is an actress, influencer, who Marjorie Greene, as you saw there, is just baselessly levying the most disgusting accusation against, just for being a human being. And this follows in line with the right-wing freakout we've seen at Bud Light because they sponsored Dylan Mulvaney. And you had Kid Rock shooting cans of Bud Light, all these people destroying Bud Light cans, Bud Light company locations being threatened, bomb threats, DeSantis speaking out against it. A huge uproar. For what? Just because Bud Light sponsored a trans woman. That's it. They're mask off. It's not about the kids. It's not about anything other than hatred for certain people based on their identities. And now people like Marjorie Greene are out calling people the worst possible things just for existing. Disgusting.